What's good, people? It's about that time to regularly relate, reverse ranch, no hate. Now, I did a video, you know, Terrence Crawford versus Kell Brooke before and after the fight. I just want to say something about Kell Brooke because um, a lot of times people they hear you and they even though you get right to the point, cut and dry, right to the point, they have questions and want to make points that really, if they're listening, it's no need to even go that route because I'm getting right to the point, okay? And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have an opinion, but what I'm saying is when you say something that clearly I state in the video, it's like, what are we talking about, Look, Kell Brooke has had a good career. The biggest fight for Kell Brooke that didn't happen, or one of the biggest fights, and at least for British boxing that didn't happen, was Kell Brooke versus Amir Khan. And I don't care where you're from, that's a fight a lot of people, including myself, wanted to see. Okay, and it never happened. I said this in the last video, and I'm going to say it again. I don't think it's necessary to even see that fight now because we're not even getting the best version of both fighters. Okay, Kell Brooke got seriously hurt with a jab. Okay, you land a punch right, you can get a guy out of there. Okay, and that doesn't look all that powerful, but the impact is different. He got hurt with a jab, man. Seriously hurt with a jab. When have you ever seen Kell Brooke get stopped in 4 rounds? Okay. So with the much bigger, stronger Gennady Golovkin, who was able to damage him, okay? He was getting outboxed, but was able to damage him just for being bigger and stronger. People always overlook there's many fighters who fought guys that were way bigger than them and they still beat them. Kell Brooke has done the best he can do. I saw a video where a guy saying all Kell Brooke needs is the right trainer. Now, that's that person's opinion, and I completely disagree with that opinion. And like I said, I don't go on people's channels to try to tell them, oh, no, you're wrong. No, I'll do it on my platform. Okay? So, let me tell you something. There's no trainer on the face of this earth, dead or alive, that's good enough to train you to beat Father Time. Okay? Some people might be able to go into their 38. Some people might be able to go to their 32. Some 28. Nito Donaire was a guy that it looked like his skills were starting to slip and diminish while he was still young. He wasn't this, like, from his very first loss, it's like he just didn't look like the same guy anymore. He was still young. James Kirkland was a guy that, Ann Wolf pushed him and pushed him and pushed him. And I never saw James Kirkland as anything other than just a puncher who had heart to go in there and mix it up. He never showed any skill. And when he changed trainers, I remember him being asked a question, which was, what's different now than before? Like, what's, how you feeling? He's like, oh, things are much better now. I get to do the things that I want to do. This is what I needed right here. Training camp was excellent, and I'm just ready to go. And he went out and he got destroyed. And what happens? You go right back to Ann Wolf. Ann Wolf can't fix you. Too much wear and tear on your body, too much physical damage, too much punishment. And see, the younger you are, people don't realize that. They think that you can take anything, but no, you can't. It's not like you just fight where it wears off over time and you come back. No. Certain fighters, certain fights, you sustain damage that's going to stay with you forever. And people don't get that. So with Kell Brooke, Eddie Hearn said he don't think we'll ever see Kell Brooke again. To be honest with you, from what I saw and what I saw in his past 3 fights, I don't think that we should. And that's for Kell Brooke's safety, for his own life after boxing. There's been many times in boxing where a fighter had that one fight too many. And Kell Brooke, like I said, you cannot take anything from Terrence Crawford. Again, In his prime, I think Terrence Crawford still beats Kell Brooke, but that's neither here nor there. It's not necessary to even go into, in my opinion. Okay, it's not something I really want to break down and go into. Okay, but just to put that out there, because you can't. I'm saying it for the people that are too ignorant to think that, oh, people trying to take shine from Terrence Crawford. Yeah, there's people that's gonna try to take his shine if they don't like Terrence Crawford as a fighter, or for those who may be mad at him for beating Kell Brooke, okay, or whatever. But that's not my stance on that. That's why I'm saying I truly believe that both fighters still at their best. I still think Terrence Crawford beats Kell Brooke, but definitely a much better fight than what we saw, and it probably goes the distance. Okay, but even regardless, the point is Kell Brooke had a good career. Let's not expect too much out of him, because you see, the worst thing that can happen is some trainer comes along and pump Kell Brooke's head up and have him thinking, I can fix what's wrong. I know what to do. They put him in there with some meatball parmesan, and then all of a sudden, he gets in there with the wrong guy. And from what I saw with Kell Brooke, you don't have to be an elite level fighter to beat him now. Okay? Looking good until he got caught. That's boxing. Michael Nunn looked good the whole fight against James Toney until he got caught and started getting rocked, and then it was all over. Because listen, if the fight scheduled for 12 and you look good in all 12, in the last 10 seconds you get knocked out, guess what? Well, you didn't slip that punch. That punch landed, you went down, you lost. So yeah, I can see someone saying they should have a rematch because of what happened. But guess what happens when you have the rematch? You might go in there and get knocked out in the first round, or you may go out there and win. But we don't know until it happens, right? But we're talking about a guy looking good gets caught. Okay, he can come back and do it again, versus a guy who hasn't looked like himself 3 straight fights. Okay, well, 4 now. Even though he won the last 3, I just wasn't impressed with what I saw, because I know the Kell Brooke that I knew was way better than what I saw. You can't fix Father Time. You can't alter it. You can't change it. When it's your time, it's just your time. Just like when you peak, your peak, how long are you going to stay at that level? We don't know that. Look at Jermaine Taylor. Jermaine Taylor was another guy who, when you saw him peak, and you looked at his age and said he's only going to get better. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. That was the thing. When we saw him get to that level, and he fought Bernard Hopkins, for example, which even himself, you could see in his body language, he thought he lost that fight. But you never saw him get better. Let's not forget, Hopkins was getting older. Hopkins was still a threat, still able to beat certain guys and get titles and all of that. But, Hopkins wasn't the same fighter either. But regardless, Jermaine Taylor didn't blossom and become this fighter that everybody thought he was going to, be. And look at how his career ended. He got in there with just, it's like, no, you can't do it anymore. I don't care if you look good for 6 rounds, if you look good for 8 rounds. And then, well, if I can just catch him within them 6 rounds, because if you don't land that shot, if you don't get him out of there, I don't care how good you look. When you lose, just like when you win. Chad Dawson's another guy. We saw him. Max Kellerman built him up to be this monster. Always calling Max Kellerman loved calling a fighter the monster, the monster, the monster. Chad Dawson never impressed me either. But regardless, it's not about me. I looked at him and I said, he's good, but not like what Max Kellerman is saying. But, I'm not mad that he tried to hype a fighter up and get attention to him. But, same thing with Chad Dawson. Chad Dawson had a tendency to just stop doing what he should be doing. He's like fall asleep in the fight. Chad Dawson never got to that level like what Andre Ward did. I remember people was thinking that Chad Dawson was going to beat Andre Ward. I saw it different. I put money on that fight. And I saw it different. I'm like, man, he's going to beat the shit out of Chad Dawson. I'm like, Chad Dawson is not as good as what Max Kellerman and these are guys that try to make him seem. I think he's a decent fighter, man, but he's not as good as Andre Ward. And all of a sudden, what happens? What happens? From his very first loss, he was never the same guy again. And even against Andre Ward, you heard him tell the ref, I'm done. He quit. He could have continued saying, I'm done. He quit. Okay? People like Rocky Marciano, who retired at 32. A lot of people were saying like Floyd Mayweather retired too soon. And I'm like, what the fuck you mean? Floyd fought everybody out there. How the hell? And the guys that he didn't fight, nobody's talking about these guys. They only talk about these guys because they're getting their ass whipped by other fighters. Okay, just like they talk about Amir Khan, Floyd never fighting Amir Khan, then Amir Khan goes get beat by everybody. So what the fuck? Like, why? What did Amir Khan bring to the table that Floyd wouldn't be able to handle? What did Keith Thurman bring to the table that Floyd would be able to handle? I don't think Errol Spence would have beat Floyd, any of those guys. Just like I said Floyd and Pacquiao. Now Marquez, at his age, by the time he fought Timothy Bradley and got up to fight these guys, it's like, okay, he was slower, older, not the same. But Floyd and Manny and Manny Pacquiao, I felt like those two guys, were 2, 3, 4, 5 steps above. You understand what I'm saying? And they would have made the same excuse after he would have beat Keith Thurman. Oh, Keith wasn't ready yet. It's always an excuse. Manny Pacquiao, who lost to Floyd, comes back at 40 and beats Keith Thurman. Oh, Keith Thurman wasn't the same. He was enjoying life. He's making money. And all the excuses don't mean anything. And I get tired of people making excuses when they're just wrong about their prediction. And that's all that is. But, we seen Marciano retire. Nobody said he retired too early. You didn't hear a bunch of people say, oh, he retired way too early. No, but they said it about Floyd, who retired at 38. No, you retire when you feel it. One thing that smart boxers go by. The day that you don't feel like doing this anymore, that's the day you need to hang it up. And I'm not talking about you have your days where sometimes it's hard to get up, to get to the gym, you just see your body's tired. No, I'm talking when you just get to the point, you're tired of taking the punches. You're tired of the whole thought of getting up and jogging early in the morning, eating the right foods, constantly training when you could be somewhere laid up, relaxing. That's when you need to let boxing go. When boxing becomes just a paycheck to you, you lose a lot of the things inside. That grit goes away, that toughness goes away. So I think that Floyd did the right thing in his career and his exit strategy. I think Marciano did the right thing in his exit strategy. Andre Ward, Joe Calzaghe, and it's not just the fact that they were undefeated, it's the fact that they left and was able to get out of here with their mind still intact. Floyd's body was already breaking down. Fighters have injuries a lot of times that they don't talk about, so we don't think about it, right? When you watch a guy like Roy Jones, who continued to fight way past his prime, it was hard to watch Roy fight these guys because the same way he would beat some of these journeymen, he would lose to some of these journeymen. And it was like, damn, Roy, and I watch every Roy Jones fight. So watching Roy Jones go from what he was to this, it was like, damn. It was just, but hey, it's each his own. Everybody have their decision to decide they want to keep fighting or not. But when you see fighters get to the point where their speech is slurred, they start having, what is it? It's not worth it, man. Especially when you get to a point where the money's not even good anymore. You're fighting on networks and people like, oh, he's still fighting? Yet it was a time everybody knew you were fighting. So I think, for the people they're hurting behind what they saw happen to Kell Brooke and they feel like they want him to go out on top. Look, leave well enough alone. You fought, you lost, move on. You had a good career. Don't worry about what other people are thinking. You have nothing else to prove. Because, like I said, some trainer comes in there thinking he's going to prepare you. He's going to show you something the other trainers did, and then you go in there and get damaged anyway. Like I said, there's no trainer that can prepare you for Father Time. And what I'm seeing with Kell Brooke is his body is just too much wear and tear. It's not there anymore. What else does he have to prove? Why would we want to see him in Amir Khan at this point? Why? For what reason? Just to say, oh, we finally got the fight? Whether it's on British soil, American soil, wherever it is. Why do we want to see that fight? Don't be selfish and greedy. Let the man just hopefully ride off into the sunset and just enjoy what he did, enjoy his money. Hopefully he can do something else. Maybe he can open a gym or do something, whatever. To support himself and his family. But boxing, it's not there. So for everybody that didn't understand what I was looking at when I said, I don't know what Kell still has left because, like I said, clearly his last 3 fights, they were not against elite level fighters. and he won, but he didn't look impressive. Not to me, he didn't. Now you guys see why. I said, what does he have left to beat a Terrence Crawford? And we saw what happened. There's many fighters we can think of. Muhammad Ali stuck around. It was a financial situation. It was a financial situation. And to show you what I'm even mean about how when you finally fade away, as popular as Muhammad Ali was, the majority of people always say his last fight was with Larry Holmes. And it wasn't. It was against Trevor Berbick. And even though he put up a better fight against Trevor Berbick, Muhammad Ali had no hand speed, no punching power. He just still had that amazing chin and heart. Ali was finished. That fight with Holmes should have never happened. They told you the story that Ali failed his test and that he was having slurred speech even then. And if you listen to Ali talk, then it's not hard to see that, yeah, he wasn't the same person, period. He already had that kind of glazed look in his eyes, and you saw things happening. But you know what? Like I said, sometimes we can get so greedy as people that we just want more and want more and want more. But, it's a time when enough is enough. It's just simple as that. Let it go. Let it go. And Kell Brooke was always a fighter that I always liked. And I definitely don't want to see Kell Brooke walking around with slurred speech and shaking and can't. For what? I don't ever want to see Kell Brooke in a boxing ring again. Unless he's in somebody's corner as a trainer. Or unless he becomes a referee or a ring announcer or something like that. I don't want to see Kell Brooke in the ring taking unnecessary punishment. Even for fighters who's not well known. I don't want to see it happen to any fighter. We're all human beings. And at some point, you got to just realize, what? Show's over. Hey, man, we salute you what you did, man. It's as simple as that. But to sit here and just keep imagining that there's some trainer that's going to work with him and he's going to turn the clock back and beat Father Time, no. And that's what I see with Kell Brooke right now. He is a damaged fighter. And for anybody, like I said, this is no way you can't take anything away from Terrence Crawford. The only way you could take something from Terrence Crawford is if he went near and went the distance with Terrence Crawford. Okay, that's the only way. Because the way I saw it, what happened in that fight was supposed to happen. And it did. And if you really care about Kell Brooke the way you guys saying you do, then you should understand where I'm coming from, man. There's no need for the guy to go in there and take punishment for nothing, man. Like I said, he did what he did. Just like with Roy Jones and all these other guys that we saw. Sugar Ray Leonard walked away after Terry Norris beat the living shit out of him, and then he came back after doing Taibo with Billy Blanks thinking he was going to beat Camacho, and he got beat by Camacho. Okay? It's like, come on, look, man, it's time to just hang it up. And I know that Kell Brooke is not as old as Ray Leonard was 40 when he came back, but that's not the point. Like I said, it doesn't matter. He's still, look at like what Bernard Hopkins did, what George Foreman did. You had a lot of people thinking that they could do it just because they tell themselves they can do it. But when you see that they don't have the ability, so look at Manny Pacquiao. At some point, it's going to be the same thing. That, hey, I can't hop around all night long and throw 100 punches around. I can't do these things anymore. And you know what? The worst thing happens is you go in there and those main key areas, look at Manny Pacquiao. You see the way he had those things when Marquez knocked him out. So imagine Manny Pacquiao that has to fight flat-footed. That has to lunge in because the hand speed is not the same anymore. He's going to run right into a shot that will take his head clean off. And then, again, when these guys keep going, but at least for Manny Pacquiao, he beat Keith Thurman. Now, if Kell Brooke, let's say this same exact fighter that Kell Brooke is right now, let's say some shit happens where Bud just gets careless and throws some shot, and let's just say he got the fight. Let's just say he knocked Terrence Crawford out in the 4th round instead. The last thing on his mind would be retire. The last thing the fans would be thinking about is retire, right? But let's just say they have a rematch or he goes to the next person and then all of a sudden he gets destroyed, right? It's going to be harder for him to want to retire after that as well because they're going to say, well, the fight before he knocked out Terrence Crawford, right? Okay, we didn't get that. And I just gave that scenario for those who will try to give that same scenario to try to make an excuse for Kell to go in there and get himself knocked out. Because I believe it won't even take an elite fighter to knock Kell Brooke out now. And the fact that he has heart, the fact that he wants to stay in there, but doesn't have what he used to. That's the worst thing that could happen to him. Larry Holmes came back after, when he got knocked out by Mike Tyson. There's a lot behind that story that a lot of people don't even know about. But Larry Holmes definitely didn't have enough time to train for the fight that the time that they gave him was taken. And he had been out of boxing for like 3 years. And, he came back and he got beaten 4 rounds by Mike Tyson. Well, he fought Evander Holyfield, and it was actually a competitive fight. So again, even looking at those things, Tyson fought Alex Stewart, knocked him out. Guys that gave Holyfield trouble, Tyson was able to destroy. So people didn't think Holyfield had a chance against Mike Tyson. When they fought, look at what happened. But it's different because you saw Holyfield fighting elite level fighters. You see what I'm saying? And these are the guys. And Holyfield, I use him for example because Holyfield did have certain fights where weird things was happening in the ring, and we didn't know if this is just Evander like getting older now, something's not right with him anymore, he's starting to fade. Is this was because then he had that fight, but then he come back and he win. He have a fight, a lackluster performance, then he come back and look great. But what I've seen with Kell Brooke in these fights, no. And the thing is, these are all against elite level guys. And I remember the one guy, I can't remember his name, that everybody thought Holyfield was going to destroy this guy. And that guy went 12 hard rounds with Holyfield. And people was saying that, Holyfield should have been able to get the guy out of here. I mean, there's many fighters, even Muhammad Ali had lackluster performances. But the point what I'm getting at is different when you just have a bad night versus Father Time has just kicked you up your ass and said, hey, it's time to hang it up. And I believe that's who we are with Kell Brooke. And I hope that Kell Brooke is appreciated. I hope his efforts, his contributions is appreciated, and that he can walk away from this knowing he has nothing to prove to anybody else. He did what he had to. He did what he was able to do. He did all he could. And that should be enough for us, and we should just salute him for that and not want to see Kell Brooke go in there and risk getting hurt. So anyway, look, this is all I'm going to say on this video. I will catch y'all on the next one.